Hello there everybody, my name is Bloomer Brown and welcome back once again to the rolling fields of County Carlow, where I am picking back up the series I was doing on the Ballymoon castle map for Farming Simulator 17. So this morning I am hauling grains once again, 392 litres of barley to be precise, which is a tiny portion of the capacity of this trailer, because when I woke up this morning I discovered that the great demand for dressed seed was still in effect. Now you might think that I would want to pounce on that pretty quickly, and you're probably asking yourself, well, why is it so late in the morning? Well, of course the answer is that I've already begun hauling. I've also installed a brand new mod, and well, it's not a brand new mod, it's new to me, and I have been doing some experimenting with it. And if we creep forward here gently, I think I can hear yes, there it is. The Massey is making its way up from the transport to the seed plant once again to collect another load of dressed seed for sale. So yes, I have of course installed the Courseplay mod and have been messing around with it. I've actually it's been so long since I've installed it and started messing with it that I've actually forgotten how to use it properly. I've also forgotten most of the controls for all of the machinery, so things are a little bit of a struggle as I get back into this. But anyway, yeah, so we are basically going to be pulling the grain ourselves with the case up to the seed dressing plant, and I have a small course set up for the Massey to bring that down to the plant for sale. And there is something epic about seeing other traffic on this road here, especially other agricultural traffic. It's something I don't normally see, especially on these back roads. There's no traffic enabled on these back roads, and I think as we play along I've actually forgotten to enable the traffic once again on the roads. It's always better, I think, to record the courses when you are to turn off the traffic when you're recording courses. But I think I forgot to switch it back on. Though I am not one to be giving advice on Courseplay because, as I say, I'm kind of new to the mod, and anything that I had learned from tutorials I've pretty much forgotten. I think I'll probably leave a little link in the description to Moose's channel. Is it Gaming Moose, I think he's called? He does some excellent tutorials on Courseplay, and by the looks of what's happening over there, I think I may need to go and watch some of those tutorials myself again. So for whatever reason he's decided to crash into the silo there, so we're going to stop the driver and try to get him back on course. There we go, we're just going to have him drive the course. Incidentally, I think that I have it set up in the wrong mode, because he doesn't seem to be able to detect that he is under a trigger to gather up the seed. So he's just sitting there at that wait point, but I don't think he's actually going to start to refill his trailer automatically, and I think I'm going to have to jump across and get that started myself. So yeah, this is actually all post commentary, which is kind of unusual for this series. I usually like to do live commentary when I'm doing this. But I've gotten into the habit of doing post-commentary with the Kerbal series recently, and yeah, I think it's kind of working out for me. So yeah, just going to carefully back this trailer in here and unload my precious cargo. So yeah, I do actually have to switch back to him and get him to refill the seed, and I think I'm going to have to get him to drive off as well, and once I get down to the seed plant I think I have to get him to unload. Though I think that may be because I do not have him, as I say, in the correct mode, the grain transport mode for Courseplay. Having no end of trouble with controls. All of the mods that I'm using as well have, or a lot of the mods I'm using have updated since I last played, and I think that as I was recording this, I think I've updated it now, but I hadn't updated the base game itself, so I'm probably going to have a few conflicts there. So yeah, we have to get the Massey going once again, so we're going to just hit continue, and away he goes at long last. So yeah, again, I'm trying to figure out exactly what I've done wrong with this, because I know there is something wrong. I had set up courses previously that worked incredibly well for me, including some courses for grass cutting out around the castle grounds, because that is not actually a field, and so you have to set it up in a fashion that would have been used, I think, actually in the earlier versions of Courseplay, where it wasn't actually able to scan the fields. So yeah, just gonna take a quick look at what we have got left in stock. Yeah, so you can see the great demand is still on. The only thing that I seem to have left is some sunflowers and some corn. And now from experience, I have discovered that certain crops do not actually qualify for the seed dressing plant. Some things we cannot seem to process in there into seed. Now I have tried to find out if that is something that I'm doing wrong, or if it's something that is actually part of the game, which would kind of actually make sense on this map, because sunflowers aren't a typical crop that's grown in Ireland. Although I would say there are some farmers that are growing maize for silage. But yeah, anyway, we are going to make all haste using the power of time acceleration back to the farm and gather ourselves up another load, possibly grabbing the last of the seed that we have sitting inside our silos, because I think we've emptied out everything else that we can use for creating seed ourselves. And it's got to be said that it is a beautiful spring morning. We're actually into mid-spring now, day 4. So that probably makes it April. No, March. Of course, it does depend on when you decide that spring starts. Typically, I think it starts in February. And so yeah, we make it back to the yard to discover that the Massey Ferguson is slipping, and we have to go and deal with this guy once again. So yeah, he slammed into the gatepost. Now I think it was my driving. As I say, all of my mods have, including the keyboard steer, I have updated, and there's a new interface for that, so I have to kind of work out that, and it is rather difficult to steer with a keyboard. I should probably get either a controller or a small steering wheel or something, just to make things a little bit easier for recording things like this. So I'm going to attempt to get him to head in here. We're back on Courseplay. Courseplay is in control, and yeah, he seems to be making his way across pretty nicely. There is a waypoint set up there, but I don't think he's going to recognize the trigger because he's not in the correct mode. And he reaches the waypoint and continues moving until, of course, he is stopped by the wall. Yeah, he's probably had a rough night on the beer or something, and probably shouldn't be driving this tractor at all, so I'm going to try and stop him there and just back in and unload this myself. So yeah, it takes me a while to figure this out, and I think that by the time I have figured out what is actually happening, the job at hand is going to be pretty much completed. In fact, I think he only has one more load to get down here. And there you can see me starting to cop on to the fact that there is something wrong with the mode that I have this set up in. But yeah, that netted us €28,000, which is really bringing up our money at this stage, because we could really do with some money. We are looking to either buy or lease some equipment for the upcoming season. We need sprayers for fertilizing, and we could also do with some grass cutting equipment. We do have a mower for the tractor, but I would like to get at least a front mower and a rear mower, just to speed things up the castle grounds. And I mean, it's not a huge amount of grass to cut, but the faster I can get it done, the better. And of course, having a little extra cash lying around to throw at any problems that might arise is going to be helpful too. So yeah, just checking the price that the sunflower seeds rather, are selling for down at the mill, because we might as well get that sold off now too, and try and get as much capital going as we can. I think I am going to hold on to the corn for now in case we get some pigs. And there we see the tractor passing once again. It's an awesome thing to see stuff like that happening. Or at least I'm fascinated by it anyway. Incidentally, I am not going to be using Courseplay in a kind of an overpowered way. I'm still going to keep myself to one worker. And incidentally, it does actually charge money to hire a worker to run on Courseplay as well. So it's pretty well balanced when it comes to the game, but it just expands what I can do with my worker, or at least expands what he can do in terms of getting some work done around the farm. And although if I have to keep switching to him like this, it's going to become a little bit irritating. And I actually noticed, looking at it there, that the first three little nodes don't seem to be lined up perfectly, which may be causing issues. I think that especially as he tries to find the start of the course there, I think they do need to be in a pretty straight line before you start making any turns. So dropping off the last of the seed from our silos there, we're getting another 20,000 out of that. This great demand is doing very well for us. Of course, there is going to be an absolute crash now for the price of seed following the great demand, but luckily we don't have to worry about that, because we are pretty much done with the seed at this stage, I think, and until we start producing some more for ourselves next year, I don't think we're going to have any hanging around the farm. As far as I can remember, I think that was the intention for the barley field, actually, to harvest it and use it to produce seed for next year's crops and keep the straw for the animals. Yeah, we're going to head back to the farm, and I think it's time to start deciding on some other jobs for today. So just jumping back to the Massey once again to try and make sure that he delivers this last load without any difficulty. So deactivating that. And he seems to be moving on. We're going to see if we can get him to tip it. No, he's going too far. He stopped to tip. Oh no, he's dropped it all over the ground. Okay, we're going to stop the driver, get him stopped, and get out and have a look at what's going on over here. So he tipped it, but unfortunately he missed the trigger and has dropped it all over the ground. I'm going to probably need to get the front loader up here. I've actually detached the entire assembly from the Massey at this stage, so I'm going to have to get that back up here. So jumping back to the case, I decided to just detach the trailer before taking the sunflowers and pick up the front loader that we're going to need. I think the bucket is actually at the sheep farm, and so what I'll probably do is drop the attacher off somewhere around the transport area, and just continue on to the grain mill, because of course they are on the same road. So I'll fill up with the sunflower seeds and drop this thing off, and let the Massey deal with the problem that he has created. So just making sure that I'm loading the right crop there, so it is sunflowers. And just checking we've nothing else in stock. We do have some corn in stock, but I may hold on to that. As I say, if I get the notion, I may get some pigs at some point over the winter, so it'll be useful. I think the corn and potatoes or something like that is used for the pig food. That's something, as I say, I'll have to look into again. Yeah, you just see me checking the location of the bucket there, and as I suspected, it was up at the sheep farm. So yeah, it may be a case that I'll get a couple of pigs at some stage, and I think we can feed the corn to them, so I'm going to hold on to that just for a little while. It's not worth very much anyway. So jumping forward in time again, we arrive at the transport area and drop off the attach for the bucket so that the Massey can clean up that mess up there and get things sorted out while we continue on and sell off these sunflowers or sunflower seeds for profit. So back to the Massey. I'm assuming that the worker is doing all this while I'm going to sell the seed, even though I'm actually kind of doing both jobs myself. I should set up a couple of courses going around the map, just joining up the various locations as I go along. It's going to make transporting stuff around a hell of a lot easier using our worker. So yeah, pick up those forks and get on the road once again and get the bucket to collect the or up to the sheep farm to collect the bucket. And arriving at the sheep farm, I notice that the sheep have made a little bit of a mess. Now, they are pretty okay for food at the moment and water, though they may need tending at some point during the day. But as I'm here and attaching the bucket anyway, I decide that I might as well have a little bit of a clear out here. So yeah, they haven't made a huge mess. I've seen worse messes, but it is worth just gathering up all this overspill and feeding it back to them, because of course this will top up their food as well for a little while and keep them well fed. So jumping forward once again in time, there's an awful lot of jump cuts in this episode because there's a lot of driving around rather than doing stuff that I could actually time lapse. And so yeah, I gather up as much of the seed as I can and we dump it in for a grand total of 1,279, so well worth gathering that. And I notice that there's still a tiny little bit in around the switch there, and I don't think that I'm going to be able to pick that up. I think the collisions around those entities will make it just a little tricky, and no, I don't seem to be able to grab it, so I think I am going to just abandon that for now and yeah, taking a look at the animals, and they are actually doing pretty well. It seems that it takes a little bit of time for the cleanup to actually affect their status. But as we can see, they're doing pretty well now. So I'm just going to park up the tractor here and jump back over to the tractor that is essentially supposed to be me, who is arriving at the Ballymoon mill and dropping off the grain and earning a tidy little €14,000 profit from that, well, slightly over 14,000, which is going to go a long ways in helping us to get this farm set up. So eventually I did manage to get everything back, and we are a little bit later in the day. It is coming into late evening and I am down once again at the shop. You'll also notice that my money has dropped quite considerably, and that is of course because I have been busy making purchases. And I also think that it is time to clear out the sheds, because I've got some extra equipment lying around that I do not want. In fact, I don't actually think that I use this cultivator at all. So well worth selling it off. We have got a larger one back at the main farm. And so we get to take our first look at some of the new equipment that I have purchased. So obviously we are going to need a sprayer pretty soon, and so I have just purchased this one. I haven't bothered with a booster tank at this stage. I've also purchased a front mower for taking care of the grass, which we'll be doing hopefully in the next couple of episodes. And of course the pièce de résistance, a brand new tractor in the form of the Fendt 800, which is incidentally a mod. Now as we jump into the tractor, I am actually considering replacing that more with a slightly wider one. Just from seeing it mounted on this, it doesn't really look the part, and I think that a wider moor would actually suit me a little bit better, even though it's going to be slightly more expensive. So yeah, the Fent is of course a mod and comes complete with all of the integrated cabin controls, which are absolutely awesome and a lovely touch to add to any modded tractors that we buy in. So yes, this is going to be of course our main mowing tractor for this season, and it's going to probably handle all of the heavy work. Which also means, of course, that I am probably going to be selling off one of the tractors, and just because I don't think I can afford to keep 3 tractors on the go for this season, so I will probably end up selling the case. The next piece of equipment, of course, we have is a John Deere baler, which is another mod that is available through the mod hub in-game. This is fairly reasonably priced, in fact, when compared to some of the stock balers. And of course, we've got the classic windrower there to help us with the rolling up of our grass. So that is us pretty much sorted out for mowing this season. And it is at last time to say a fond farewell to the case that has served us pretty well actually over the last couple of episodes. I've also decided to sell off this forage wagon here because, well, it's a little bit too small. I'm not going to purchase a new one just yet because we're not ready to begin the silage. And as I sell off the case, it seems that I have to pay to repair it, which is only going to cost me €40, so I just go with it and sell off the tractor to get some funds back. And of course, we are going to need a tether as well, and so I just select that one. I had my eye on it for a while. So yeah, it is time to get to work hauling some of this stuff back to the farmyard. While this tractor is probably not enough to power that baler, it's definitely going to be more than enough to haul it back to the farm. Of course, we have got a front attacher set up on the Fent as well, so that we can mount our front mower. And there you see me realizing that we can actually rotate the seat so that we can operate this thing in reverse as well, which is absolutely awesome. I didn't realize that could be done in this particular model. So just trying to work out the controls again. I think the steering sensitivity is a little bit out on this. And as I say, I think I need to update the base game itself because I think it is conflicting with some of the mods that I have installed and updated without updating the game. So yeah, just struggling there to get the tether into place, and I'm just going to stick the Massey onto a follow me, and we're going to make our way back home. It's obviously going to take 2 trips to get everything up here, or back up to the farm. And so, arriving back at the farm, it is time to start putting some of this equipment away. First off, the baler. I think I'm going to pop it just in there in front of the cultivator. We're not going to need that again this year. Well, not at least until the autumn if I decide to do some winter wheat. And somebody seems to have left some bale forks there in the way. And it just makes manoeuvring in a little bit difficult. I have finally made a decision about the animal trailer as well, and looking at what I'm going to get for selling it, I think that it is worth getting rid of it. The number of animals that we are dealing with is well in excess of what that can do, and it just makes things a little bit inconvenient. We may end up renting a truck and trailer to transport animals around for ourselves, especially when we come to buy the cattle, and of course sell off some of the sheep in the winter, if not all of the sheep, though I think I will end up holding on to a few of them. but that will be, of course, be later in the year when the wool production stops. So we get the tedder in there safely into the shed, and I think for now I'm just going to drop the mower over here in front of the other one. Again, not entirely sure, but I may end up buying a slightly wider mower. That is a 3 meter mower. It's very cheap though, but it may be worth purchasing something a little wider depending on how the mowing goes up around the castle. And so back down to the shop we go to collect the rest of our equipment, and at last we make it back to the farm with the final load of equipment and start parking up for the night. Though I think it is probably time that I go and have a look at the sheep, because I think that they are in need of some water. And of course that gives us the opportunity to take the water bowser up out of the main yard to the sheep farm, where it probably should be most of the time. And since we are coming to the close of another day, I decide that it is not a bad idea to begin repaying some of the loans so that we don't have to incur interest tomorrow morning. So as I set off for the sheep farm, I decide that I am going to record a little course for Courseplay, just so that I can kind of automate hauling stuff up and down between the sheep farm and the main farm, using one of my workers if I need, or my only worker I should say. Because nighttime usually doesn't make for good video in Farming Simulator, or in fact in any game, I think that I am going to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for tuning in. You have been watching Bloomer Brown on YouTube, and I will see you next time.